Yeah. All right. Thank you. Of course, we think of this like 1 minute after 6. I look at the camera, I'm like, wait a minute, no one sees the presenter if you do it that way. Oops. So welcome. We're gonna get started. I know there's some people that are still on their way, but Working Animals Workshop. So we have done this a couple times, or a couple years ago. And it has really stemmed from the curiosity that people have, or actually just the incomplete knowledge that people have about the differences between all the different working animals, right? So there's such a need for this out there, and it's not often taught at different places. So welcome. My name is Donna, and AllenForce is a nonprofit, 501c3. We have been serving for 13 years. Our anniversary is in 15 days. It will be 13, yeah. Yeah. And we have, our services are through therapeutic recreation. So that is my background. That is Marit's background, who you see on the TV screen here. She's actually working remotely with us from Colorado right now. And Margie is getting her degree in therapeutic recreation as well. So our world is working with people with disabilities, whether it be mental health, physical health, just all of the above. So that's what our training is in. And oftentimes with that comes service animals. So it's another one of our passions as well, just to make sure that they're represented well, they're trained well, the understanding is out there so that the person who is in need of assistance doesn't by mistake get the wrong kind of animal either, that could end up being more detrimental to their physical or mental needs. So that's another important reason for this workshop. So we have a few different speakers here with us tonight, and you're going to get to meet them. Just a real quick introduction. Keith Aguina, Army veteran. I introduced Marit on the TV, and Margie has been coordinating together with them the presentation of this workshop along with Candace. And Candace, we also invited, and she'll introduce her partner as well, and we also invited some guests here that will be wonderful for Q&A later on because they have another perspective as well. But Tom and Joe, and welcome, it's nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
My dog.
Excellent. And then let's go and just do a quick introduction. Have you guys say who you are? And Diana, I'm going to ask Diana to start. You see her kind of taking pictures here and there of the animals and stuff. She's been a friend of AllenForce for years. So Diana, would you do your quick introduction?
I'm Diana Anastasia. Thank you all for coming, and I am blessed to be able to take care of Moxie right now while a good friend of ours is getting some care, and so he's going to be with you today. And thank you for having me again here with AllenForce. We're so proud of all the stuff that you're doing, and for years I've been saying you need to do like some workshops for the public for this. Eventually you can do that. That'd be great.
So you guys want to go next?
Sure. My name's Tosh Anderson. I'm Army Dad. I'm actually in the process of getting a service dog as well. So it was perfect timing and just got my prescription this week actually. So happy to see this email and this workshop and thought I'd come see what everything's doing.
Welcome. And I'm Kristen. I'm just here to learn as much as possible about the whole process and everything involved.
Welcome.
I'm Susan. I'm here to learn all about service dogs. I know I'm eligible, but I don't think I'm worthy from what they do.
In multiple ways, absolutely. So it's all education, absolutely.
Hi, I'm Kel Johnson from veteran, and I have a service brand dog. And that's my story.
Service brand dog. I love it. So we'll be going over service animals, therapy and facility dogs, comfort animals, emotional support animals, and pets. And what is the difference between all of these? Before deciding the type of working dog that you need, like we talked about, the differentiation and understanding is imperative. We'll talk about a new law that was put into place, and then we'll have just a quick little breakout session too with one of the worksheets that's in our folder You all have a folder in front of you, so there's some tools in there that we'll be using throughout the presentation. My role is just to do a quick little, and then we'll have Q&A, and there's a resource list in your folder as well. So my role here today is just to give you a brief history about AllenForce. And we have a couple slides of photos and things. One thing that Diana mentioned about teaching workshops, a passion that I have coming from the civilian world is really educating the public on not just working around and collectively with or having in their family or whatnot people with disabilities, but in the last 15 years, I've been immersed in veteran culture, which has been an awesome journey for me. And so that's a big passion of ours. These are some photos of a workshop that we teach about serving injured veterans. It's a 16-hour, pretty intense training. We just had one 2 weeks ago. And we do that twice a year for professionals that are working with veterans. We have our women's program called She-Force. It started for women veterans, but it is, the women veterans voted to have it open to wives, mothers, daughters, and sisters as well, so they could bring friends and relatives. And then we also have our vet rec program. Again, recreation is how we serve. So everything from family movie nights, where this whole wall is filled like an IMAX theater with our family movie night, to skydiving and other things we do, you know, high adventure and adrenaline. And our vet tank program I had mentioned before, where we loan out the electric wheelchairs. We have a 5x8 trailer that the veteran can take for free, sign it out, and bring it back when they are done. And then we also bring the vet tank chairs out. For example, we support the Moving Vietnam Wall when it comes around for the 4 days that it's set up. And we'll provide the accessibility to anybody coming on site. And we also do, within our programs, for example, on Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays a month, we have a woods walk starting up in different counties, just in forest reserves around the counties. And anybody who wants to join in on that, but they're a little unstable off-road, you know, on uneven terrain, we have these with us all the time. So they could just jump into one of those and enjoy the woods walk or whatever program we're doing. And the speakers tonight I introduced. So what we're going to do first is actually take 5 and complete the form in your folder called Working Animal Checklist. I'll hold it up so you can see what that looks like. Pardon my up close in the camera right here. So the Working Animal Checklist should be on the left side of your folder pocket, behind the agenda and the piece of scrap paper if you want to take notes. And looking at that, one thing we'd like to just start off with is, this is not an all-inclusive list, but what we'd like to do is invite you to either make a mental note or actually put a checklist next to some of those things. If you were to have an animal in your life, would you want that animal to assist with any of these things listed? And if so, put a little checklist, check mark, or just make a mental note of what those would be. Because this is going to lead into something else to identify more of what kind of animal should be in your life to assist with those needs. I feel like I should have Jeopardy music playing.
Sounds like everybody's eating when it gets quiet. One good thing too is the mall is building up, so it's gonna be a lot of trips over there and get some exercise.
Marie, can you flip to the next one? Okay. So that is for you to just hang on to, and you can always add to it later as well. This is for your resource work. What I'd like to do is then invite Miss Candace up here. And she is going to do our first section on service animals. So thank you again for being with us, Candace.
So,
Hi, my name is Candace, as Donna mentioned. This is my service dog, Clea. She was showing you today that service dogs are not robots, but we'll talk about that later.
And let's do a check. Marit, are you able to hear okay?
Yeah, I can hear okay. It's a little, oops, sorry, clicked on the wrong screen. I've got two screens going. It's a little blurry, but it's okay.
And move the speaker as close as I can. Okay.
Awesome, so just to start off, what is a service animal, right? So a service animal is defined as, a dog or miniature horse that has been previously trained to mitigate to perform certain tasks and mitigate a person's disability. Let's run that back. What is a service dog or a service horse, right? They're trained to mitigate a person's disability, so specifically train different tasks, whether it's pulling a wheelchair, alerting to medical issues, getting a drink, bringing meds. But the key difference between a service animal and any other type of working dog is that they've been trained to mitigate disability. So now that we've established that, what makes a dog a service dog? One, again, they're trained. I'm sorry. I must be a little bit nervous, but I'm repeating myself.
No worries.
I think I've said trained like 8 times. I think we've established that, right? But just a little bit of background. What makes a dog a service dog? They've already been trained, and the person who receives that service dog is disabled, right? So these days we see a lot of dogs with vests on that may not have been particularly trained. So does the vest make a dog a service dog? No, it's actually the training. And just pointing a little bit on that, another thing that's required for service dog is that usually a doctor is recommending them for people. So for example, when I first got started for my service dog journey, I had considered it for a couple of years. I wasn't sure if it was the right fit for me. And my license actually recommended it to me, like, we suggest that maybe you consider getting a service dog to help mitigate your disability. So what I did was I started doing research online, because when it comes to service dogs, there are a few different routes that you can go, right? So you can go through an organization and they train the dog for you. There's the option of owner training, and there's also the option of going through a private trainer. Unfortunately, there's online, when you look up information about service dogs, there's also a lot of misinformation on there, right? So it's important when you're looking for what the best decision for you is to really consider your lifestyle and if a doctor recommends it for you, it might be a good option to look into. And when it comes to, this is something also that Keith is going to talk a little bit more about later, but there is also a new Disabled Veterans and Service Dog Healthcare Act for veterans to help. I think it's for pets, right? If I'm not mistaken. For pets, yes. But I know a lot of times, I think you're going to go a little bit more into that later, so I'm going to let Keith handle that. But yeah, so we have a general idea of, what makes a service animal. And it's so funny because, we typically hear service dogs, right? You don't really hear people very often talking about service horses. What they do is this: miniature horses can actually be trained to do tasks and support people with disabilities. So they are also service animals. So just moving to the next slide really quick. Yeah, so I kind of mentioned this before, but when it comes to the process, there are a few different ways you can go to get a service dog, right? So like I mentioned before, you have to be disabled, and the dog actually has to be trained to help you. So for some people, they may say, oh, I don't know, like what a dog can be trained to do to mitigate my disability, but you'd actually be surprised. Because dogs are very smart, and there's like a lot of tasks they can be trained to do to help you. And so again, organizations, sometimes there may be, a wait list or application process that you must go through to get a service dog through an organization. You have the option of going through a private trainer, somebody who, local places that also have different programs. And then there's also the option of owner training where you may go and get the resources to learn how to train your own dog to be a service dog. Again, none of those options make one service dog better than the other, but at the end of the day, it's just important that they're actually trained to help you so that they can actually, benefits you more than hurts you, right? Help you more than hurts you. Um, and a little bit more into training for service dogs. So task training, like I mentioned, 10 times already, the dog must be trained to do specific tasks, create disability. But it's also important that they're able to go out in public in a respectful manner, right? And so when it comes to public access training, service dogs go through a process where, in my case specifically, she was, the first thing they do is learn how to be a dog, right? As puppies, they have to learn how to be a dog.
Yeah.
And then they go into training for, the public, right? How are they gonna, when they go out into places, are they respectful, not jumping on people, not running, not using the restroom in public? So they learn how to be a dog, they learn how to be a polite dog, and then they learn tasks to specifically help whoever they're gonna go with a disability. And that's kind of what she went to. And some organizations and even some states may require, maybe canine good citizen test, but also a public access test for the service dog. How to train a service dog. So like I mentioned, it's really important that, because service dogs go into so many different environments, they have to be trained to handle it, right? So it also is helpful that the service dog is able to fit your lifestyle. So for example, I know I have a friend who has a service animal that she loves Halloween and parties and stuff and costumes. If she had a service dog that was afraid of costumes, that probably wouldn't work, right? So it's important that her service dog was trained for different environments. And so when it comes to how to train a service dog, like I mentioned before, being a dog, and the reason why I said that is because a lot of people think that, oh, service dogs, they're robots, they don't get to have fun, they don't get to have friends. But it's important that service dogs, they're a dog first, right? So they need to be able to, go out and play and have their time to themselves, but also transition to that work mode. So some service dogs are trained, vest on means working, vest off means go do whatever you want, and then some service dogs have a specific command, like she was originally trained vest on, vest off, where when the harness is off, all bets are off. She's probably running around. But we kind of phase that into a command too, so she knows when she can go and say hello to somebody versus when she can go and run around the room. And so it's really important that whatever route you choose for a service dog, that you trust the people who are training your dog, because it's important that whatever their style is, for example, there are different methods that dogs are used to be trained, right? So if an organization or a private trainer is using a method that you don't trust, it's important that you do your research and just background so that, you'll be able to continue the training, whatever they started. Because one thing about service dogs is a lot of times it takes at least up to 2 years to train a fully trained service dog. But as time goes on, they have to also keep those skills up, right? So they're working every day, but it's also important that, they're keeping up with their manners. She's like, oh my goodness, here we go. But they're keeping up with their manners. I lost my train of thought just a little bit there, but whatever method they were originally trained, you have to also be confident in continuing that training. So whatever that looks like for you and your training organization, but really confiding in and being able to trust whoever their trainer is important because, unfortunately there may be private trainers or different groups that aren't as trustworthy or don't have the proper credentials to really train a well-trained dog that will be able to help you throughout, their life and your time together. So that's very important. I know I kind of zipped through some of the stuff here, especially during the beginning because I'm just a little bit nervous.
You're doing great.
You're.
Yeah.
Now, I say you.
But I would be, if I were to just take a few questions, that might help me if I missed anything, in terms of service dogs or even my own journey. I'll be happy to answer, sure.
So, especially being a veteran, a lot of people, when they see me or see me with you, they'll say like, can I get my dog trained to do that?
Oh, yeah.
So even though I know the answer, I still sometimes think, can I get my 8-month dog to train me on, like when I read this list, I'm like, now Cody can do some of this.
Yeah.
So can I get her trained to do some of the stuff this year, even though I already had her for 3 years?
That's a great question. And what I'll say is everything that service dogs go through, even as they're young, it's kind of like a temperament, right? Want to make sure that they'll actually be a good service dog. Some dogs, they don't necessarily make it through service dog training. Doesn't mean they aren't great dogs. They might still be able to do a lot of, tasks that they that they've learned, at home, but not necessarily great for public. And so, when it comes to, training your own dog as a service dog that you've already had that hasn't been a service dog, so transforming a pet into a service dog, I definitely recommend like consulting a trainer and starting with that temperament to see if they have what it takes. But also, as you mentioned, not all dogs could do certain tasks. So an 8-pound dog probably could do mobility, So it's worth kind of considering what it is that you need and if it would be a good fit. But like I said before, there are also lots of different programs or organizations. Some have wait lists too, where you can go on and wait for a service dog. Some have shorter wait lists. There's different routes, but it's just a matter of figuring out what works best with you. And once you narrow down like your personal beliefs, what you look for in an organization, their processes. So many of them have different processes, and even some organizations, they train multiple different types of service dogs. So they'll train seizure alert dog and a hearing dog and this type of dog. And some organizations only specialize in, service dogs for veterans, or some organizations only specialize in mobility service dogs. So it's just a matter of confirming what it is that you want. I recommend maybe just starting by writing it down, talking with your doctor, and then really just evaluating your own lifestyle or how a dog will fit into your lifestyle, because they're still a dog, right? Now, it's just a dog now, everywhere you go.
Really smart talent.
Yeah, almost like having a child with me, how they say, like, really, golden retrievers or even dogs are so smart, but like toddlers almost. Sure.
So can you leave the dog at home sometimes?
That's a good question. So one thing that I wanted to say is there's a such thing called at-home service dogs. Really means sometimes that people's, disability or needs may change over the years. I've heard of some people having a service dog that doesn't necessarily go out in public. So they're trying to help them, but they don't necessarily leave the house. And I also know someone who has a service dog, who has a diabetic alert dog, where his schedule and his work doesn't necessarily fit the service dog lifestyle per se. Service dogs can't go to work with you as an accommodation, but he does from time to time, have that time away from each other. So it doesn't mean they have to be with each other, but they're an accommodation, just like anything else, maybe one day you would use a cane or the next day you would use something different to mitigate your disability. So service dogs are just like an addition to mitigating whatever your disability is. So.
Like a medical device.
Yes, exactly. But I talk a lot about service dogs online. Sometimes people are bothered by me saying medical equipment, but that's actually legally what they are, and that's what the protections. We have the protections because they are defined as medical equipment, even miniature horses. I know someone who has one, and she records in the grocery store, and I know people might just be shocked, but it's they're actually a service animal and they're trained, so it's not like they're really disrupting business or. No, not really.
Susan had a
Yeah,
question.
oh, sure.
I just wondered if there were, I would want to be involved in the training of the animal right from the start,
Sure.
so that I can learn right alongside them. And also I know there's long waiting lists and long time training, lots of money put in, and I don't need all that. And I'm thinking if I had a bigger animal, which I love, big dogs, I wouldn't be able to treat them, to wash them and this and that, because I'm gonna be 65 and I'm probably fast. And I have to face the fact that my abilities right now are not, that, the bigger dog is not reasonable. If I get a smaller dog, I've seen people with wee bitties, and I'm like, is that legitimate? Can they be a service dog? Is there such a thing as a service cat?
Yeah. Only miniature horses and dogs, but they do come out at the time. So, although we do have a problem right now seeing dogs that aren't necessarily service dogs, you can usually tell by the training, but I wouldn't just judge by the size, because there can be diabetic alert dogs that are really small, and really good, and really help that person mitigate their disability. I would just recommend kind of looking more into your needs and what, like today, even today, we're gonna talk about a lot of different options. Maybe, another type of dog would be more beneficial.
I can speak a lot of what you're talking about.
I have to do it.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
you're-
that's my top, yeah.
And so thank you for listening to me today. I know in the beginning, I probably said training and service on 5 times in 30 seconds, but I appreciate it.
I just had one more question. I was going to ask you a question.
Sure.
How do you think that after you received your dog, how did it really change your life?
Yeah, so it's so funny because I honestly didn't really know what to expect. Like I knew, okay, I'm gonna get a service dog. Like one day I'm gonna have a dog, or one day I don't have a dog, and the next day there's a dog following me everywhere, right? So it was a transition period. When I first got her, we did like almost like a working weekend where they came down to where I lived and like kind of walked me around with her. And then the first time they're like, okay, you're on your own. And like, I'm in my living room, she's in my living room, we're just looking at each other like, all right, welcome, you know. But I would say it is very life changing because, you know, the whole point of being a service dog is to mitigate your disability, which means, you know, the option wasn't previously there. So it's just kind of incorporating her into my lifestyle and, you know, helping me out every day. So it's like now looking back, I'm like, wow, how did I do this? You know,
It's kind of like an extension of you now,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Just like, yeah, like any other medical device, is an extension of you. So, yeah.
I just have one more question. How do you handle dogs who you anchor to, even if you haven't with it, they have the time for their home potty and that sort of thing? How do you handle it? Do you back up a roommate or something that spell you when you're not available?
That's a great question. Well, especially when I first got Clea, it was very important that she was bonded to me, so nobody else could feed her, nobody else could walk her. It's very important that she knew who, after being trained by other people for years and having a puppy raiser and trainer, who she knew and felt like was her mom. They're like, oh, here's something you don't know. So it's very important that she was bonded to me. We had a relationship. Now that it's been a couple of years, if I did, of course, I need to be able to be handled by other people. For example, if I'm in the hospital or if anything happens with me, somebody else needs to handle her, which I actually have been, before I've been an ambulance, and you know, if I'm knocked out, she has to be able to be handled by someone else. And so, it is a responsibility, like I said, it's a cool dog, sometimes she's not feeling well. She's not feeling well, we're not going to her, like, she, you know, she's sick, so that's something to consider, but, you know, if you have something you have to report to them, I'm sure there's, you know, it's just like, I knew this is your life as work, any other things, I don't want to say negative, but any other things that may come on.
Thank you, Candace. So we're gonna definitely have more questions at the end probably too. So write down your questions if you think of more along the way as we go through the different types of animals. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to address what you were saying about sizes. I remember one guy that was about 6'4", big burly. His service dog was a Yorkie.
Wow.
And the reason being, it was something that he could hold close to him, and that close contact just by holding him in his arms was all he needed. But you see this big guy with this tiny little dog. It size, you know, it's not a requirement. You know,
That sort of helping can be qualified as a service dog rather than just a emotional pet or.
It just needs to perform 2 tasks.
Can you switch the slide?
2 tasks. So for me, it's just black front, black back, boom, 2 tasks. That's all people can ask you is your dog a service dog? Yes or no? And then they can ask you what task your dog is or is trying to perform. That's it. I learned that the hard way, and that's why I educated myself thoroughly, because I didn't have to explain to my son's school district exactly what we're doing right now. Which is why I really appreciate what you guys are doing right now, because I wish there was more of this in just the general community. You know, I mean, I'm a veteran, but I prefer to go like Joe. My military days are over. So, but like you said, it's, if you really want a service dog. When I just taught him how to give me hugs, so he thinks I'm getting worked out when I need a hug, right?
Yeah.
I'm very aware of what I'm doing. But I need to change.
Oh.
But he could sense I'm getting a little worked up, so he's like, hey, chill out, I'm good. I didn't teach him that. I've had him since he was a puppy, he bonded with me, and I had no idea what kind of dog I was getting. I just got paired with him, so ask him for, I had him as a young, like 3 months old, yeah. But
If you get a dog that's a couple years old at least, and you're.
it depends on the organization. I'm
Right. Let's get into this in a little bit. Yeah.
I don't want to step on their.
I want to make sure we get through all of
Yeah, I
it
don't want to
for
step
the
on
full.
toes.
yeah.
As
But absolutely. It's important though, I want you guys to hear his perspective because it's more a unique perspective, not usually, those in the service dog world don't usually advocate it in going that route that he took. So there's always exceptions though. So we're gonna move on to therapy animals. And therapy animals have a big role, in society. The definition of a therapy animal is that it can be more than a miniature horse or a dog. It could actually be a guinea pig, a cat, rabbit, rat, miniature pigs, llamas, alpacas, and birds. Those are the species of animals that can be certified as a therapy animal. So the biggest thing about a therapy animal though is yes, somebody does own the animal. It has to go home with somebody at night. But that animal is not there for that person's individual therapy. It's for everybody else. So that's the way to think about the therapy animals. It's for other people to love on. It is not for my medical need. So the training is a must. It has to be able to go out into, first of all, it is not supported by the Americans with Disabilities Act. It is not welcome everywhere. You have to get permission. You might be join a pet therapy team, like at a hospital. You do get licensed or credentialed to go depending on where you're working. So the therapy animals, they must have the right temperament and they cannot be fearful of medical devices like wheelchairs or walkers or anything like that, or an elevator in the building or an escalator, or well, I would usually use an escalator, but those things. And so it has to be well socialized above all, because it is there for everybody else. So with the therapy animals, some of the locations I mentioned, hospitals, nursing homes, frequently have therapy animals come in and visit. Schools, I used to take my therapy dog to special education classrooms all the time. And talk about well-trained and not reactive. You know, when you're working with somebody with cerebral palsy and uncontrollable like muscle spasms sometimes. You know, my dog's ear was in that child's hand and the child literally couldn't let go and he just sat there waiting for his ear to be released. You know, so they have to be able to withstand, depending on what environment you put them in, they have to be able to withstand those kind of accidents happening and not be reactive. So they are not equivalent to a service animal in the way that they are trained for a medical task, but they have to be as well behaved. So, and of course, I mentioned already, they're not covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act, only the service animals are. So they have to have approval to go into somewhere. So from therapy animals, we're gonna go on to facility animals. And it's basically a therapy animal, but it is approved by one specific facility. And it can have multiple people that work with it that could cause issues in itself. But that specific animal is approved just for that one facility. For example, we had here at AllenForce, she just passed away, our dog, last Memorial Day, but we had a facility dog. So Sage, you guys got to meet in the past. She had carte blanche, you know, access to any AllenForce programs. She was a facility dog. So she came into the facility, everybody knew her, they could all pet her, anyone could, not anybody, there were certain people, multiple different people could take her out, you know, to relieve herself. If they were comfortable with it and they, you know, had a real simple little training on it just for Sage's safety as well as their safety. But it is an animal that is approved by that facility and always goes to that one facility. The animal does not stay at the facility and stay overnight. It does belong to somebody that has its main care. But for example, if Sage were still with us, you know, Margie could take Sage to the vet for her checkup. I could take Sage to the vet for her checkup. Keith could, you know, spend the whole day with her if he wanted to, as he was working on a project and just needed some, dog love that day and whatever. So the therapy animals are for everybody else, and the facility, it could be a facility specific animal. That's kind of a tongue twister, facility specific. All right. Marie, any questions on therapy animals? If there are, we could also cover them at the end as well. Marie, I think the next slide.
Ooh,
I believe.
yes, yes, it's me. Sorry, I was fighting with Zoom. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep,
She's right
okay.
there.
I'm like, I can't see my face, so I don't actually know if you can still or not, but I'm here. So the next animal we have is working animal we have is the comfort animal. Comfort animal, depending on how you look at it, can be a subcategory of therapy or really even emotional support. So the definition of a comfort animal is an animal that's used to assist during an active crisis and act as a comforting presence and distraction to those impacted by said crisis. So they are invited to places they are requested by these locations that offer comfort dogs that are privately owned by their handlers, to come out for a specific to perform comfort at a specific place. So training for a comfort dog, it is not like a service animal. It's not quite as intense as it would be for a therapy animal, but they do need extensive training in obedience and behavior. You want them to be well behaved in order to be out in those public spaces. You want to know they're going to have a steady demeanor and stay calm in situations where people are going through some sort of trauma. And then also, if you don't know about canine good citizen, that is a form of training that is always preferred, really, I would say, with any animal. Again, comfort animals are not protected by the ADA, but they can go wherever they are invited. So they can be in a public space so long as they've been asked to come, as long as that's been approved. So an example of that, so I can tell you is, there is a group called Care 9, and we have had them come to all our all-in motorcycle rides. Back in 2022, we had one that was in honor of Gold Star families and in suicide prevention within the military. And Care 9 brought their comfort dogs, and so each one is privately owned. They are scheduled to come out to a specific place, and we have them actually joining us for a program we've got starting tomorrow. And in every one of their emails, it says, we will be there. Our handlers are planning to be there at this time, this day. However, if a major crisis comes along, we will have to cancel because they are meant to go to the most needed location to help and be of the most assistance. So but they can be, I mean, any animal can be a comfort animal, realistically. It's most typically found in dogs. The Care 9 is pretty much all goldies, and they all have their own business cards, and they're fantastic. But they're wonderful, and they bring exactly what they're meant to, and that is comfort. So it's a very short, kind of small category, but if anybody has any questions about the difference of comfort versus therapy, either if it's quick, we can answer it now, or you can hold it to the end.
Thank you.
All right, on to the next category. We have the emotional support animal. The definition of an emotional support animal, any prescribed animal that somebody with a mental or emotional diagnosis, the dog provides you companionship and comfort. There is no specialized training. There is no certificates. This is governed by the Fair Housing Act, which overrides the no pet housing policies and related fees. It is not protected by the ADA. It requires a legal document written by a licensed mental health professional. This one's the touchy one, emotional support animal. That's the touchy one. Because if you read the definition, it's an animal that helps someone with mental or emotional problems. Who has a pet? Who has a pet?
Everybody.
Yeah, I would say like my dog is mine in the morning, I'm loving it. I mean, that's, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, so this one is a touchy one. Yeah, and go ahead and you can go ahead and flip it over, Marie. So with this one too, what happens is, what I've seen is that the person has the animal and then they go to a licensed health professional and they say, hey, I need to take this. This dog is, the only right that it really has is to go into housing that do not allow pets, to go into condos, apartments. For a while, it was covered in airplanes, but it is no longer. They did do away with that. It can be any animal. It can be any animal. Yeah, so moving on, like hot debates, some hot debates. So and it does not require any training or anything. Some research when I was doing it, and I did my own research, I put an emotional support animal, and about the first 6 things was, get your letter here, get your letter here, get your certification here, get your, and I was mad.
So much harder. It's not
Yeah,
even
get your
fun.
certification here, and it doesn't require any there is no certification, no
No.
training.
None. None
Yeah.
whatsoever.
For none of
She
these
said,
categories, actually, there is no official certification.
There's no official certification for a service dog.
Right, that's what I mean,
Yeah,
any one of
like,
these
nothing.
categories.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you think about it, and I also work in a restaurant, and I'm sure everybody's been out, there is an uprising in the animals coming into places.
Target, I had a woman with a bed. She put a literal dog that she brought from her car, put it in her cart and loaded 2 chihuahuas in her cart as I'm leaving, and her dogs are going nuts. Hawk just sits down and looks at me, and I look at him, and then the employee just looks at the lady and just was like, what are you doing? Like, everyone was just like, is this seriously happening right now?
Yep.
And
Like I
didn't
said,
even
I've
have
seen it in the
necessarily-
restaurant
The lady
recently.
was just that bold that she wanted to bring her dog to the Target that bad that she was gonna do it regardless.
Yeah.
And then she realized, the employees realized she was impeding on me at being a shopper, kicked her right out.
Good.
Immediately, right at the door.
Good.
They looked at her like, no, that's all they said was just no. Like, she knew she was pushing it, and
Good, because
You
my
said-
restaurant doesn't have the goal to do that yet, and I've seen a lot. I have seen the dogs coming in strollers. Actually, a few days ago,
it irritates.
the
me so
woman had like one of those baby carriers,
Mm-hmm.
but the dog was in the baby carrier.
And that's fine, just leave it outside, because you're making my life so much harder, because he's already got enough to like block me
Distractions,
from, and
yeah.
now you're gonna bring a pet that is not disciplined whatsoever.
Right.
Into a place of business.
Yeah, a lot of-
I mean, I.
Don't get us started.
That's why we gotta be
Yeah.
very careful, and I knew going into this, I knew I was like, oh, I could be opening a can of worms with
I'm
this.
trying to be quiet and not step on toes, because a lot of this is real personal for me, but
Yes.
I am greatly enjoying the presentation.
Thank you, but technically, they are not supposed to be in public. I looked into it, like even colleges, I looked into like universities, so if they were to come into a university and be allowed to live with somebody in the dorm room, those animals are not allowed to go to classes. They are not allowed to even go out in the common area, to play like frisbee and things like that.
So we would have to basically carry some sort of guidelines to educate the store. Here's the guy.
You got it, you got it, yep.
That's an option. I just know the law well enough to where if someone.
Do you mind
comes
passing that
outside,
around
we
later?
know how to
You do it later.
and go through. Cause you can kind of tell right from the jump when someone's coming at you sideways or someone's coming at you with genuine curiosity, and you can kind of answer appropriately according to the situation. Like me, I carry all kinds of flyers and brochures in my backpack if someone genuinely wants to know about my dog, but just don't be rude about it. I'm still a human being.
Right.
Just because I have a dog doesn't mean anything. If you would like to know how to get a dog, I'll happily help you, but other than that, leave me alone.
Right.
So to sum up the ESA dogs,
Yeah, so it's a very thin line between pet and emotional support animal. And the only thing that they are protected for is to be able to go into housing and be able to go into housing that have a no pet policy in it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Hey, my turn. Okay.
Watch the cord.
Sure.
You need to move this forward.
Hi, everybody. I think everybody's looking pretty much for a service dog today. So my thing, I'm gonna talk about pets. Pet is just basically any animal that you come home to, stays at home, and is your fur buddy, feather buddy, scale buddy, whatever.
Like that.
So for the purpose of this, instead of being every animal on the ark, this one goes down. So if you have a dog, you want, it's that coming home to something that's gonna give you unconditional love, no matter what kind of day you've had, who's gotten on your nerves. When you get to the front door, you know that tail's gonna be wagging, or sometimes a cat mouse. But it's just the ones that you just keep at home. They don't go anywhere unless you take, you take them for walks and everything. But a good thing they have, if you've never had a pet before and are interested in a service dog, it may be good to start with fostering a pet. And that's a short-term ownership, so, but it'll still give you skills on training, how to walk, learn the dog's schedule. They have to go out, they have to walk, they have to exercise. You go to Canine Good Citizen. I recommend that for any dog you get. Canine Good Citizen to start off with, especially even a pet, because that not only teaches the dogs the commands, it teaches the owner how to handle them. So it's kind of, if you're looking for a service dog, it may be a good first step to start. Well, how does this size dog work? How does that size dog? How does this breed work? How does that do? And you may turn into what we call a foster failure. That's where you say, I'm gonna foster this dog only for 3 months. 5 years later, you still got it. Couldn't part with that dog. But it may be a good way to start off with your journey to service dogs or emotional support dogs or whatever you may need. But it's just the one that's always going to be home when you get there to kind of help you leave outside. So that's
Awesome.
pretty much it.
And the new law,
Sorry?
the new
Oh,
law.
and there's a new law too, that House Bill, Illinois House Bill 2500. If a veteran does want a dog from a shelter, the shelter will waive the fees for a veteran with the proper identification. So you don't have to worry about that initial 300 or whatever. That if you want to go pet, fosters usually won't charge anything, but all help supply food, medical care, things like that. But it also gives you that learning how to deal with the animal before you go on to further service, support animals, service dogs, anything like that. That would be a good first step in determining what kind of dog you want, because a good organization is not going to give you the dog you want, it's going to give you the dog you need.
Absolutely.
That's the most important part. You may say, oh, I want to get that German Shepherd, and you can need it. And a good organization is going to know that dog's temperament, whatever, and match you to the dog that you need. So you're not sitting there fighting with something all the time. So it might be good to start off with a pet, even like fostering, to give you that, am I going to be able to deal with a dog 24/7? You get up early, you might have to get up during the night for a dog that's sick. You have a vet ready, all these things that you need to know when you get your permanent dog or animal, whatever it may be, and what steps you're going to need to take for that. Good first step training. And like I said, maybe your fosters fail, you may end up finding out that that little guy in the house is all you're going to need.
Fostering's pretty awesome too, is I worked with a couple other veterans who've gotten dogs recently who their dogs were fostered by just the generosity of normal people in the community.
Yeah.
And now they're given to veterans fully trained. I mean, fosters are crucial in my
And that's
eyes.
one thing too, fosters give you a chance to really get to know their dog. So you can tell the next person, this dog has this kind of temperament, it's good with other dogs, not good with cats, will go after a squirrel in a heartbeat, whatever it may be. It's because you've got a chance to really get to know everybody, get to know you. So that may be a good help for the person, next person down the road.
I've never had dogs and I need the experience of understanding, even if I got a small dog, what its needs are. Do they need as much walking as a bigger dog, that sort of thing. But also I'm curious, does it depend on the organization as to who does the promoting or the selling of the dog once you have it as a foster? You know, who tries to reach out and find connections someplace for your foster dog that you're
Oh,
taking
you
care of?
actually like the rescue or the shelter that to get it from, they should have like, a network where they have to reach out to people and say, hey, we fostered this dog and it's got this temperament, and then go to different organizations and say, yeah, they can say yay or nay, but this way, you've got the experience behind you.
I understand about the fostering part, it's just that when you're looking for a permanent home for that dog, is it the organization again that is reaching out to find permanent homes for the dog, or is it the
They
foster?
do, a lot of organizations can do the best that they can, but resources are limited, and sometimes shelters are built to the max. So it's really hard to try and get that one when you've got 200 that are equally wanting or needing. So it's good to even just walk around a shelter to look at the different dogs. How do you feel about this size, this thing? And visit dogs first. It's a process. You don't want to just take the dog right away and expect it's like they sit stakes for them.
And I've seen the combination also of, for example, if I was fostering a dog, had it for a month, and I'm waiting, okay, now who's gonna adopt it? Because I agreed to a month. Who's, like you said, who's advertising that dog to be adopted out somewhere? Is that my responsibility to get it out of my house? Is it the organization who I'm fostering for? So I've seen both work together. I might be posting it on social media and the habits at home to show how great a dog it is. And they might be, have it on their website. So I think it's usually a team effort. But it's not solely the foster parent's responsibility.
Yeah, a lot of times they're saying that this dog has been fostered, so we know this, that, and other about. Right. Or we've got one in training foster right now that may meet your needs, and they can do the introduction there. Okay.
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a very good organization. We have people that volunteer, that'll just take the dog for a week. And like, say I go on vacation and I'm a puppy raiser. Okay, somebody will take the dog for 2 weeks and then I'll go back. And we do it and it's really, really helpful because, when you're raising a puppy, you got that puppy till it gets to 8 to 10 to 12 months old. That's how long we train puppies. And then after that, then we start looking for who's the best match for that dog and what the dog has to offer to this certain person. And usually the dog kind of picks up the person. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
They take to you or they don't take to you. You find that out. But we find that the fosters are just like the lifeline for us, and everybody's volunteers. And we advertise on a website because not all dogs are service dogs. Even the puppies we get, we have a very good success rate. We got about 85% success rate going into the service. But those other 15%, we'll go probably at 3-4 months whether they're going to make it. And then, or 5 months or 6, some dogs takes a little bit longer, a little bit less, and they get a habit that you don't like, and we call it a career change. So
Great label. Great label.
And we'll put it on our website, say, hey, we have a 5-month-old Bernie Doodle that's totally potty trained, really trained, but he does a little barking or he does a little crying. And he can't become a service dog with just little things like that. We've even had dogs wash out because of, you know, they had irritable bowel syndrome. And, you know, special food they had to take, you know, and you didn't want to give anybody a service dog, they, you know, it's gonna, you're gonna pay $100 for a bag of food, you know, that lasts for, you know, 5 weeks, you know, so. You know, things like that, but it's amazing, you know, on how well you can look on websites like that and find dogs that, and all we ever ask for is a donation of what we ever have in the dog. So if we have a 4-month-old dog and we pay $1,500 for the dog as a puppy, that's all we ask for, and we have a trained dog.
That's awesome.
That's wonderful. That's the cool thing is like,
Is there any questions or anything?
they pair, they pair you with the dog.
I've had my dog for 3 years. I'm sorry, I don't need to know. It's not trying to just.
I know her dog.
What he wants to do. Is it too late for her?
They already do it. So you what?
Yeah.
To be trained in, like, not spoiled.
In general.
In general, to help me, if she was trained better, maybe she could help me be less stressed out. But she's just, like, let me just give you an example. If I'm depressed and I'm at home and I'm in the bed, she was sticking bed with me as long as I stay in bed. She won't get up to pee, she won't, so we'll both just be in bed for all day. You know, so I guess that could be good if I want company, but it's not if I'm trying to get up. You know, so is it too late for me to kind of make her support me?
I think one of your first steps, you need a canine good citizen. Go through that training first, because that not only trains the dog on basic commands, but it will also help you train you on how to train.
Yeah, I need her.
So this way you can learn a specific role you need after you do the training, sits in, whatever it may be. And then you can learn from that how the dog reacts to certain.
Thank you, Mrs. Cox. And sure.
Website? Is that their Facebook website?
Yeah, it should be in the resources.
Yeah.
You sparked something, a thought in me, because I don't have, family, friends, or,
I don't know.
resources in order to spell me, because my only friends are down for work.
I don't have any.
And
Yeah,
I
I'm like
thought
that,
maybe a community or fosters could help me out when I go down there to take a week or two. This is something that
A lot of times the organization has people ready for
That's what I was gonna
emergency.
say.
Because a lot of times, like as vets, you know, we're going to the hospital for something. And it could be a day, 2 weeks or whatever. And this way you've got someone that you can go through the organization and you've got the dog from that can supply that foster that's trained with that dog and knows what it is supposed to do and not supposed to do. So it's kind of keeping up the training while you're not able to.
Okay.
That's what our organization will do. Okay, thank you.
I had a comment about career change, because that's what I was looking for too, that some dogs, you know, they might be from specific areas that like disqualify them from service, but they're still generally like would be the dog. Because originally, the dog that I thought was gonna get named was Dixie, and they're like, Candace, you know, with him down to it, their final test. They're like, we're going to be, Dixie's gonna be career change, although she might be research on her energy is just too high, we don't think she'll, just because it's like bouncing off the wall over everything, and everything she did like 5x speed. Career change.
It's a super dog.
And they're wonderful pets. If they're a service dog, watch them.
Can you back up one screen? Sorry, maybe it's moved forward. Yes, that one.
Dog never like paired the nose loop with what it meant. So when the dog was hit home, you know, when that dog was, you know, obviously career change and became a pet, whenever the dog wanted attention or anything, it was his nose boop. That's how it was taught to alert, but it was never taught like a full task. So she said the dog was nose boops are random times.
That's funny. Well, we're gonna go on to the next section. Keith, thank you. That was great. So before we go on to the next worksheet in your folders, just to bring up some of the things that are really, really important to think about. Between all of these different things, once you assess what it is that you need out of an animal,
Do you need a medical device? Do you need somebody to get out there and engage you in socialization as like a therapy dog would? Where you would go become a member of a therapy dog team at a hospital for children? You know, are you looking for that kind of engagement? Do you need an emotional support animal? When you get home at night, when you get home during the day, whatever that is, if you're home all day, do you need an animal there to get you out of bed if you're more in bed? Do you need an animal there to help you feel safe in your home because of high anxieties? Like beyond the, you know, regular feeling safe in your home, like a diagnosable high anxiety, and you need that grounding space. Do you need that animal to, help you get out into public and socialize? One of the girls who taught with us last year, her emotional support animal, she said she would never leave her house if she didn't have her 85-pound dog bouncing off the walls, making her go out and take her run every day with the dog or play in the park every day with the dog, and that got her around people. But it didn't make her necessarily socialize with people, but it got her out of her house, and it got her more engaged in community. Even if she wasn't actively talking to people, she was out there. So that emotional support animal is gonna do whatever you need it to do for you on the home front. So some things to really decide though. Are you a behavioral specialist? Can you train your own animal safely? So that's what, and if yes or no, it is fine, but why I want you to think about that is if you want a highly skilled, professionally trained service animal for a medical need, and you don't know how to specifically train that animal to do that medical need, you should not be training your own puppy. If you're not being supervised all the time, or if you don't have the discipline to learn ahead of time that behavior management training, so you can be consistent, reinforcing, and, you know, learn along with that dog with reinforcing their behaviors and stuff. I'm gonna ask you guys to talk more about this. So those are really important things to think about. The majority of service dogs out there, like, I think you mentioned, and you guys mentioned, it takes a good minimum 16 months before it even goes with somebody with a need. I have seen, even one person is too many. I have seen 6 different people just in my small circle receive a service animal, and they had grown in our programs to a point where they were engaging, they were active, they were participating, they got their service animal. But it was actually another situation, it was a rescue animal from a shelter that was like 3 or 4 years old. That animal had its own triggers. This person needed it to help them with their triggers. The animal ended up setting them off, and vice versa. Because their triggers, when they're having anxiety, the animal fed off it, who was already a rescue that had been, you know, in abused homes or whatever. And then the animal was triggered by their triggers. And the 6 people I know detrimentally affected their lives. One of them is completely homebound again, but they will not give up their animal. They love that animal and they don't see anything wrong with it, but their family is in mourning because they had just finally become part of doing things together again. And now they won't leave. And then those triggers ended up causing that animal so much high anxiety that that animal now, who is labeled a service dog by a service dog organization, has bit 4 people, like causing wounds. So these are repercussions of not knowing exactly what you need and the steps to take it, to no fault of anyone's own, other than the lack of education. So those are really important things to think about with red flags before you're deciding puppy raised versus a rescue dog, if it's a dog, things to think about. So what we want to move into is the next slide, the acknowledge and access form that's in your folder. These are scenarios that multiple people brought forward. And Candace, I'd love for you to talk about this. Joe, you'll probably have comments on this. Keith, I know you've got comments on this. but we're gonna go one at a time.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go through these scenarios and we'll just give it, like 2 minutes per scenario. And then we'll move to the next one. And then we'll have question and answer. And that's when I really want to invite you guys also to give your perspective, because we've got, a service organization that has been doing one thing a certain way, but now there's this exception that's working out beautifully. And there's always exceptions. I love exceptions. Absolutely. So, you want to lead the assess, or Marie, you want to lead the assess and
Yeah.
acknowledge?
You want
and
me to do it,
assess.
Marie?
Or I can, I have the paper here. Candace, excellent. Come on, up, or you can read them from there. Either way.
Okay.
I know, I was like, this is your department, yeah.
Service officers are often faced with a number of different situations that may not always be easy to deal with. In this exercise, we'll talk about some difficult scenarios, but it's important to note that this is not to scare you away from getting a service dog. This exercise is to bring awareness to different types of situations that can happen when you get a service dog, so that you're aware and prepared for whatever comes your way. Please rate each situation on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being that this situation wouldn't bother you at all, and 5 being that this situation would cause more harm than good. Describe your reason for that selection. Please note that there are coping mechanisms and tools that certified parents can use to deal with this situation. Okay, never mind. You are shopping at a grocery store, but the customer has to be asking your service dog in pain. Now, for providing it, they begin calling your dog to them. Wait for your dog. This happens very often with, because I've given the fake name, but then I forgot the fake name that I gave before, so that's not a good talking method for me, because my memory is really bad. But
Yeah, and the point being, if this is happening, how are you dealing with confrontation? How are you dealing with annoying people in your face? How are you dealing, you need to really look at these things before you think and go the path of, I really want a service dog and I need a service dog as a medical device. I am prepared to deal with all of these annoying situations, and some of them highly escalating situations, to be frank.
Service dog prepared to attack.
Oh,
I haven't said, go, kill.
you'd be legally kicked out.
Yes.
Because the law protects that as well.
Before, but service dogs can't be aggressive at all, and that will actually disqualify them from
Right.
the legal rights that they have. It's not to do with protection dogs, are not meant for protection physically or by attacking anyone.
Yeah, we're not even addressing those kind of working animals tonight.
No need.
Yeah,
Okay,
number 2.
Okay, number 2. You have to wrong when a shopper asks why you need a service dog, because they say they don't see, because they don't see any indication that you're disabled. So because, a lot of times you don't physically,
Why do you- So how would you handle that on a scale from 1 to 5? Would that be like, holy cow, anxiety is gonna throw me through the roof, or I'm gonna throw, them through the window? Or, 1, totally fine, I can answer it and just fight the law. So rate your number 2.
And the one thing to remember too is you're there to protect the service dog as much as the dog is there to help you. So you may get in a situation where someone's just gonna be, I want to pet it, I want to pet it, I want to pet it, I want to pet it. And you're gonna be, no, it's working. Sometimes before it triggers you, walk away. Sometimes people won't take no for an answer, and they'll follow you around, I gotta pet that dog. If it's gonna trigger you or set you off in some way, step away from the situation. Use the service dog as your calming in a different area. But sometimes, you want to avoid the confrontation, and sometimes it's unavoidable, but don't let it trigger you. That's the one important part. Don't let it trigger you.
Can't fight
Learn how to deal with people and just say, hey, my dog is working. Please don't touch it. Don't speak to it. No touch, no talk, no contact.
I've changed my approach too. Because when I first got her, I felt like I had to answer everybody's question every time, and I explaining my whole medical history in the middle of Target. And now I have to say, I'm sorry, I can't talk now, I'm sorry, it's not a good time for me. Just because you're existing in public doesn't mean you have to explain why you're disabled in public with a dog, you know? We have service dogs exist, so you'll learn too, what works for you, like, you know, what your limits are, like, today I can't answer random questions. You know?
Right. Susan, and then we'll go on to the third one.
I think that another bit of training is for the owners of the service animals, because some people, myself included, sometimes the triggers set you off and you're like a bottle rocket. When you're living, you know, you learn a way to keep yourself from going up like a rocket, you know?
Yeah.
So you've gotta learn ways to calm yourself and handle situations, so you're known to remove yourself, if you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hawk do it for me. You see Hawk jump up, give me a hug, give me a kiss before anything happens.
Yeah.
So that's one thing Hawk's trying to do is before I blow up and say something I'm gonna regret, he just jumps on me and calms me down before I even get
It
to
snaps you. It goes like this.
Responsibility on my part too.
Yeah.
It's nice to get the backup from.
Well, I had to train him, don't get me wrong, that didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
No, like, I have a lot of time on my hands that I spend training him,
Yeah.
so.
So let's go on to number 3 then. You're invited to a new restaurant with a group of friends. And when you arrive, the front staff is giving you a difficult time about dining inside with your service animal. Is that gonna set you off, number 5? Or you can handle it, number 1, or somewhere in between. So rate that for yourself, and in this assessment, it's helping you to know where you are. And if all of these things are gonna set you off as a number 5, that's okay. That just means you yourself can learn the tools with more training yourself before you get the service animal, if that's your route you're going. That's all that this is explaining. So this is just a self-discovery.
They don't teach you this, but you don't actually know what to expect until you're in it, right?
That's the unfortunate part.
Until after I got the service, I'm like, why are we looking at me? Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate part, that training doesn't happen prior. So you guys are gifting yourself a knowledge set here tonight. Number
What-
4?
And I would say one thing too is there's cards you can get that have the law on it that you can hand to the manager. This is the law. You can only ask me 2 questions. And that's educating that owner at the same time. To have a legal right, here's the law. If they want to call the cops, fine.
Yep, and on that law card, it's not saying, you know, this is my service dog certification number, blah, 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 because that literally doesn't exist. There is no national certification, but that law is law. And the only way that they can dispute that law is if your dog is biting somebody, or if your dog is, you know, defecating all over, you know, whether it be on purpose or by accident. You know, that's just, so, there's only a few situations where you can legally be asked to leave the premises. And, you know, under the ADA as well, but by the protection of the location.
So now we went to Mexico and I was trying to tell them, you know, she's a service dog. She's a service dog.
American disability.
Right.
American.
That's like, you know, this is not America. I can do what I want.
Yeah, American disability.
So number 4, we got 2 more minutes on this. You are at a store that is not pet friendly, and there are pets in the store barking at your service dog, and the staff is doing nothing about it. So I actually heard somebody talking about a scenario of this earlier.
2 weeks ago.
Yep.
That happens all the time.
So
It's not like it's a freak occurrence.
at this
Stuff I
point,
deal with on a regular basis.
do you have the tool set at this point where you can answer a 1 or a 2? This isn't gonna, you know, freak you out. You're ready to deal with this. Or use up to level 4 or 5. Do you need more education in preparing for this before you get an animal and get into that situation? So that's what this assessment is working on.
I'd say pick one or the other, 'cause it's gonna happen. You just, it's how you handle yourself, is how it's gonna go from there. So it's all about your response, so if you're so firm and just tell them like, no, he's working right now, sorry. And then just walk
Exactly.
away and don't give them a chance to respond, you're good to go.
Yeah.
It's all about how you respond. So I mean, like, oh, this is great, but even if you go on the Illinois Attorney General's website, There is a list, a sheet, you can print it out, and it's for the person with the dog and the general public. And it straight up says, what can I ask a person with a service animal? I wish so much that people would just acknowledge that, like, just educate themselves, and
We
I
have that in our-
appreciate why we're all here tonight, because all the answers are there, no one just cares to take the second. to look.
Exactly.
And
So when we
everyone's
do that
so
survey-
nosy, and they think people are getting vests off Amazon and bring their pets in the stores, or like that bold woman at Target I referred to earlier, it's making it hard for people like me. But if you have your, like you said, your response already prepped in your head, I just don't say anything. If they're just coming at me sideways right from the jump, I just don't acknowledge them. So at the VA and the elevator, I just wear my sunglasses. That way people just don't even bother me. Through all the way up to my appointment, I just keep my sunglasses on. I had old people, quote unquote, whispering to each other, oh, poor boy must be blind. I was dying inside, dying inside, because they were asking questions about my dog that I didn't want to answer in an elevator.
Yeah.
But I was wearing my sunglasses, so they thought that I was blind and deaf because I wasn't answering their questions and I was just staring forward.
Yeah, see, you gotta do what you gotta do, you adapt, you figure out what works best for you, absolutely.
It's like, all right, how am I gonna mess with this next person that's gonna ask me an inappropriate question?
Right, so we have 10 minutes left, we wanna make sure to address all kinds more information. Keith, I'm gonna have, or actually, before we do that, I want to allow the 10 minutes to get more into the depths of these things. Marie, after this slide, is there another, or are we at that point?
This is, so, yeah, after
We
this,
just
this was essentially the last slide. It was just question and answer, have them take the survey, everybody take the survey, and then just to contact information for some of the speakers, which are also
Excellent.
going to be in your resource list, so.
So in your folder, while we are asking questions and stuff, this is the little paw print, dog face. We're just asking your feedback on tonight's presentation. While you guys do that, or you can do it at the end, we want to spend the end of this workshop, while we have until 7:30, to address some more details, to address some questions. Keith, what I'd like to do is have you were raising your hand to share some information, and then I'd like to go to Tom for you to talk about a little bit more. I think you started to describe about VIP service dogs, talk about your typical training, and then I'd like you and Joe to talk about the exception.
On number 4, I see that a lot, and the reason is because you see these people going on Amazon to get their vests, their doctor letters, their certification, and any other BS they can get. So a service dog does not have to have a vest. It's not required by law. But like Candace was saying, when the vest is on, the dog knows it's working. When the vest is off, a lot of times that's when it's playtime. And that's good to have it because then it's like, I'm at work now, and when it's off, now I can play a little. So I'm in favor of vest, but like I said, this kind of situation you see too much because people can just, you go online, service dog, make your dog a service dog in 5 minutes. You know, get your letter, everything else here.
The thing is making everyone seem skeptical of dogs in public, so I got cornered with someone with this vest on at my son's school. Thought that I was just trying to get by their system of their no pets on the property policy. No one asked me, well, she asked me repeatedly if my dog was a service dog. I didn't expect the answer yes. She wasn't prepared for a yes. So she kept saying, well, I gotta check the school's policy. I gotta check the school's policy. And I'm trying to tell her, he's not a pet. He's not a pet. He's not a pet. He's not a pet. And all I just kept repeating to her. And then I ended up having to educate myself in the entire school district, not school, but school district. This is an elementary school, mind you, a place of education that I had to go and storm. That, you know, they had about 50 kids coming, or whatever, they had no problem. None. So I had to educate them after I got forced into an uncomfortable situation. I had to be the bigger person, educate them instead of being observed by it, because my son still has to go to school there, right? So what are you gonna do? Now, I think they're out the window, now it's about my son in school.
Donna, I can't hear anything now.
But
I'm sorry, if you guys can hear me, I can't, hear anything anybody's saying.
not the people concerned about it, but just the general public. I mean, man, I'm a person too, just like you. Everybody, bro, people realize that they're respected. I respect everybody in here just like I respect myself. I hope everyone can treat everyone the same.
It's good information.
I'm just speaking from life experiences. I'm saying, I wish there was more of these classes. I really love what you guys are doing.
That's done.
Well, and I, just chiming in one more time about that after listening to everybody and being somebody who is, a civilian and who's learned about service dogs through the years and learned some of the rules, it's taken time to, so the average person doesn't understand these things. And I said, what I do believe after seeing this again, how imperative it is, especially with the onslaught of the different categories that somehow have entered the space, that there needs to be something bringing the public, civilian world and the veteran world, just in disability, all of that, somehow that education and just understanding that many people just don't understand. You're not supposed to go up to the dog to pet them. I mean, the natural responses, or you see a little child, how much children love dogs. And and we're like, okay, how do we handle this? And you're right, it just needs to somehow, maybe out of this particular workshop, you're gonna see where that might evolve into other things and you be.
That's why I love you saying the civilian.
Yeah.
Veteran world,
Thank you.
that's me as a veteran, I just wanna blend in and be a civilian. You don't see me wearing anything army out here, right? All my scars are covered by my clothes, I just wanna be Joe. I don't wanna be Sergeant Daniels, I don't wanna be a disabled veteran, I just wanna be Joe.
Yeah.
I wish people would just treat me like Joe.
Two things I want to ask.
The dog helps you do that.
Unbelievably so, and that's why I'm gonna share the talk with the public, because he allows me to be Joe, so everyone else can just get out of my way. That's how I feel about it. If you're gonna come at me sideways with an ignorant question, I don't have a response for that, so I just keep my mouth shut and keep walking.
Yeah.
Because Hawk is for my personal benefit in life, not your entertainment.
Two things I wanted to ask.
Understand?
Thank you, and that is so important. I wanted to address, and you might be able to address this as well with the foster program and things. So AllenForce, for example, Moxie is a service dog trained by, America's Vet Dogs. They're in New York. So he was trained for a little over 2 years before she went to go meet her dog and then train with him for 3 weeks on site, then come home and have a trainer come visit from New York and train in the home, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the process usually of a service animal, training. He currently, because he's not with his owner, we're respite working for him, AllenForce does that. He is not a service dog right now, because we are not the owner. He's not my medical device. So currently, at the most, he is a pet therapy dog. But that being said, I'm not gonna risk him with a huge group of people, like if we were to take him to a nursing home or something, for him to get sick, because he is a medical device. I need to protect him.
I'm really glad
So,
you understand that.
Yeah, so that being said, also with the training, for example, I have seen a lot of challenges, is the nice way to put it, but unfortunately failures. When somebody has pets at home, now they're gonna get a new puppy, bring it home and train it for a service dog with all these other pets. So I'd like you to speak to that and then go into this exception now.
Right before you do that, the one comment that the person who has the dog also, the reason allowed the dog to come is to say if Moxie was gonna be safe. And that.
Oh, right.
That was the number one thing, so you can see that, I love it, that everybody is protective of that particular animal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's the law,
Yes.
that's protective of if you're easily triggered or you, so many times you hear, if you can produce the law in writing,
Yeah.
and just tell them, you don't wanna mess with the ADA, it's law, I'm sorry.
You'd be
Yeah.
surprised how long it takes you to get that card out, though, when you're flustered, that it takes,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like
Sure.
hours to get that card out, that's why I just walk away.
Okay, we'll do that. So Tom, go ahead.
I have some little filters going on, got on the table from EIT Service Dog Foundation. And we are very similar to the, AllenForce that we are, this is gonna be our 14th year in existence. So we just, yeah, so it started out, our, president and founder of the Service Dog Foundation, she had a son that was born with spinal bifida and, went through millions of dollars of operations and things like that. And so she decided, you know, I wanted to get a service dog. So she looked into the service dogs and $25,000. She said, I can't afford that, you know, so she said, hey, she trained horses. And she said, if I can train horses, I can train a dog. So from that, that's how it all started. That's how so she got her first dog and got him trained, got her credentials from a couple of different organizations. And that's how our organization started. So we start our dogs out as puppies, and we have a wide range of organizations and breeders that sell us dogs. Sometimes we give them donated, but most of the time we have to buy them. And they give us a discount. And there's sometimes if we had a dog here just recently, we just got, and all the lady said, either go to a veteran or go to an autistic child, but she has an autistic child. So that's all, you know, little things like that they ask for. So when we get the puppies, they're usually anywhere from, you know, right around 10 weeks old. So they're breeding puppies. And we have a series of puppy raisers. And my wife and I are been puppy raising for 13 years. So we get all kinds of different dogs. You know, I love the Goldies. I like the Labs. I like the Doodles. You know, we just, our last dog we had here that just got placed with a veteran. He's a Doodle. So he's a great Pyrenees Doodle. He's a big boy.
Yeah.
And the person that he goes to, the veteran needs stability issues. So we, as an organization, usually don't have a whole lot of small dogs. And we could probably, you know, everybody has issues with small dogs sometimes. They're a little bit hard to train, they're a little hyper, they bark a lot. And we kind of kept away from this really small breeds. So I think our smallest dogs are maybe 50 pounds. That's a small dog compared to what we have. So our doodles are very popular because people don't want to dog in sheds. Sometimes they're allergic to the, and so by having a doodle, you have a dog that, you know, we have burning doodles. We have golden doodles, labradoodles, you know, you name them all, but they're all big dogs. They come with a standard poodle, and a standard poodle is a big dog. And we've done two poodles too, and so we started out that way. So we'll keep that dog, the puppy breeds will have that dog from anywhere from 8 to 12 to 13 months. And once they get to that age, we'll have a list of people who are looking for a dog, and we'll start saying, hey, this dog is really good. My last dog that we raised, he went to a little girl with autism at 8 months, and that's really early. And the first, I'll just share a story real quick, if that's all right.
Mhm.
And so first, you know, we have them meet the dog, the family, and then that following week, we maybe do an overnight visit, a day visit first, and overnight and a weekend. And so the mom sends out me a note the first night they're having overnight, and she's over there, she says, hey, Tom, you know, Cubby's doing great, you know, she said, I wanna tell you something. This is the first time in 10 years that my little girl took a nap with the dog and I had an hour to myself. You know, when you get that, you know, it just like grabs you in the heart, and say, you know, so, I mean, that's some of the things that you see. And doing that with little kids, and we do a lot of stuff with autism, and we do a lot of stuff with kids in need. But recently, about 2 years ago, we started a fund in order to be able to place dogs, with no charge to veterans. Joe is one of our veterans that received a dog, and I'll expound on that a little bit, but we're gonna be placing our 7th dog with veterans, so, and that's awesome, and these guys are all doing great with the dogs, and dogs are super, the people are super. So getting back to our training, once you place the dog, our people come back and have to come to class once a week with their dog, once they're trained. So they'll stay with us another 3 months training the dog. And so we like to get the dog early to a person because the dog gets really attached to the puppy races. So, and you get attached to the dog, but the sooner you can give that up a little bit, and then person will have 3 months to really bond with the dog. We find that it works better than having a dog that's like 2 years old and you're getting, and plus, don't forget, when they're working 7/24s. You know, they're always on, and they retire a little early. You know, if you can get a dog that retires, and they'll retire at 8-9 years. You know, they don't last, you know, a long time because they're always on high alert. So, but that's our policies. That's the way we, and it works really good for us. Other organizations do different things, you know, but veterans, we try to get a dog that fits, probably close to a year old, fully trained, except for the needs that they're gonna have. So once they get their dog and the dog picks out him, he or her, and they bond, then that dog is placed. And once they're placed, he says, you know, I need this, and that's what we'll work on in the next 2 or 3 months. And then finally, we'll have a graduation ceremony, and the dog graduates, they get their big boy vest, and they, no more puppy and training. So, but Joe is a special case. Not that he is a special guy, but
Very special.
Joe, we just met him.
he's a special guy.
So break
So he came to us.
I like that. That's funny.
And he was in need of a dog. And at the time, we didn't really have any dogs ready that were fully trained. And we proposed to Joe saying, hey, how would you like to train your own puppy with us? And this is gonna be your dog.
I need something to do.
And
I'm driving myself
And so
crazy.
he checked all the boxes, you know, that hey, this might work. You always get that feeling, you know, because some dogs wash out, you know, and that's the one thing I didn't want to happen, you know. He trained the dog for 6-8 months, and all of a sudden, he's gonna make it a service dog. So that's why we keep away from this, but Joe was a special case that we felt, you know, he got a great dog, and they bonded right away, and they've been inseparable since, and I've known him since, for 6 months with him, and this guy is just an amazing little boy. So, I guess it covers what, you know, what we do.
It does, and I know we're past time, if you guys do have like another 6 minutes to spare, let's end that. But unfortunately, not everyone does this here, but, are we okay to go for just another few minutes? Cause I did want to ask Joe to share a little bit, if Keith has something, and then any other questions, please.
Go ahead. VIP service dog. Right.
Also,
Yeah.
remember to do the survey, Donna.
I have some extras here.
Yeah, they did it.
Keith, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if anybody saw the test for the service dog was performed for Joe.
While Tom was talking,
Time was talking.
he saw all you guys sitting in this half circle, and he automatically knows I don't like crowds, so he automatically walked in front of me to block. And anyone that was gonna approach me, he would have cut them off at the pass.
Nice.
So this is the stuff,
Without him saying anything, the dog knew the situation.
but that's
There's
because of the bond.
You know, our dogs are like, you know, it's just like good canine citizenship. They got a pat, you know, they got like 50 commands or something that they, by the time that they're going to someone before we give them up. So, go ahead, Joe.
I just wanna say from my perspective, being a veteran, lost everything, wife, kids, family, everybody hates me type deals. When you're at rock bottom and you have nowhere to turn to, and then someone like Tom and VIP and the whole board comes, I've been searching for a service dog for a good 3 years. Went through companies that promised me the moon and the stars and ended up being just nobody, or ended up being, fly by night, closed down, you know, or it's a company that's just gonna waive or pay the adoption fee for a shelter dog for me. I had enough problems going on in my life. I couldn't handle a shelter dog that was anxious. I'm an anxious person as it is. I'm already by myself, so what do I got to lose? That's why I reached out. I found VIP. I'm just having to get in the shoulder right by. I'm a veteran, and this is a civilian organization. Pique my interest. Maybe they're gonna treat me like a human being and not talk down to me like I'm deaf or dumb. I'm still a human being, just a veteran, still Joe. So the coolest part about VIP was that I wasn't Sergeant Daniels. I was just Joe. Nobody asked me about my disabilities. No questions asked. No, my doctor, good to go. And every Monday at 6 o'clock, well, 5 and 6 o'clock, you know, there's 2 classes. They follow up with me, and not just on Mondays. That's the physical follow-up, but throughout the week, Don will hit me up, you know, when I first got off, and still, we'll meet up on to help a veteran on Monday nights. Not because he's paid to do it, or I'm paid to do it. It's because I genuinely want to help everybody. I mean, whether it's people that want a dog, whether it's people that want knowledge, anything. I just want to share this gift that this guy gave me and Tom and the rest of the VIP, but it was amazing. I picked up a puppy earlier this morning from VIP for hopefully one day, wishful thinking, but that's kind of why he's being a rascal right now, because you got to play with the puppy for the first time. He's a little tired and kind of like, oh, kind of snapping back in the service dog mode. But like, just all the stuff he has learned has helped me leave my house. I used to be so terrified to check out in the grocery stores. But now, just with him, I taught him how to walk sideways so he can guard me. If it's not a block, he'll walk sideways with me as I enter the cart. There's just so much he can do that I didn't even realize he wanted to read his eyes. And he's like, yeah, show me that. I want to do that. Let's do it. And it's just what comes down to the vetting process of like VIP. It just worked for me. I'm not saying all these other companies and organizations are bad. I'm just saying I didn't need more prize that a shelter dog would have gave me. I'm saying this is what I needed, him, not any other dog, him. And through that strict vetting process of a legit organization, I got hope, and that's all I've ever wanted. You know, you leave the military, you lose that identity, and now you're out. No one's telling you what to do. Everyone's being passive aggressive. We're so used to being direct communication right in your face, right? Now everyone's being passive aggressive. Oh, what does that mean?
I think it's a nice thing with Joe doing his own puppy. He's also doing commands for his dog. That's gonna help him a lot. And Donna, I've done some things with Donna before, and she knows, like we do, my wife and I, we challenge our puppies all the time. We give them a lot more tasks, you know, like we were talking about, you know, we had gloves to take off and on. We always have our dogs take off gloves. You know, we have them take off socks, you know. They can get up and get a receipt at the counter when somebody's giving you a receipt when you check out.
And don't drool on it.
And
That's one thing I can't see not to do. He's a drooler and I don't mind. That's all right. That's the one thing I'll tolerate.
It's just some of the things that we try to do for
Yeah.
dogs, you know, I mean,
You're doing it right now.
And the more, it's just, because somebody's gonna need them, you know.
Yeah.
But the
We-
cool
So we have one more minute. I want to
Yeah,
make sure
go
anybody
ahead.
has questions because there's a lot of knowledge we've been put out there. And there's a lot of different goals of people for why they had come here tonight. So are there any questions? I don't mean to cut you off, but are there any questions?
Do you have a wait list for that?
You know, we have an application and it usually takes a little to fill it out. You know, we require one thing from the, two things from the, you have to have a doctor.
Way less red tape than you'd expect from like.
Yeah, it's not
Very
as much as you think so. You know, sometimes veterans are a little reluctant to get a service dog, you know, and I always, and I told Joe, when you get a dog, you know, that's a badge of honor for you guys, you know. It's not a service dog.
I don't feel shame whatsoever, it's a privilege.
Our list is not that extensive, you know, surprising, as much as I go out to try to get veterans on board, we're not getting rushed by veterans, you know. I mean, like I said, this is gonna be our 7th one in 2 years. So, which I think is pretty good for first go with.
I hate that it took me so long to find and actually execute getting a service dog, because it would have solved so many problems years ago if I would have just gone through with my heart and actually. I mean, I've done all the programs the VA has to offer. I've done all the programs, you know, when the Warriors Project has to offer. I've done all the programs. Therapists can't walk with you in public, you know.
Nobody can get unconditional love.
No, and that's what I'm saying. If I start feeling shaky or uneasy, jump up on me and give me a hug and kiss. I didn't know that.
Facebook.
Well, I would like to just wrap up, just to honor everybody's time here. We're already 15 minutes beyond. You are welcome to stay after if people have a chance to stay after and just have, you know, more conversation while we clean up and stuff. But I'd love to invite you all, if we oftentimes, whoever wants to be in a group picture, we oftentimes take a group picture at our programs. And we'd love to get Marit in the picture on camera here too. So maybe we could all stand over on this side by the TV. The dogs have been amazing, but I know you might want to space them out in the picture wherever you're comfortable.
It makes it easier on the dogs.
And if you could bring your survey up with, or you can leave it on your table or upside down on the table, wherever you're comfortable with it.
I didn't fill out.
Thank you guys.
I think
That's all in all, everyone can count on it.
Oh, and then the evaluation of our program.
Oh, yeah, I got that.
Oh,
But
excellent.
the
That's what I
survey
mean.
part, I
The
guess.
evaluation of our program with the little puppy paw on it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna look this way.
All right.
Hear you guys talk, maybe we think that maybe it is.
that's why I want to talk to you. My question was like. I was trying to hold my mouth shut so bad because I didn't want to step on.
Moxie, come down. Boy, boy, down. I've been thinking about getting a good boy. Stay. All right, there's Moxie. So Marie, we gotta make you on a different view here.
Okay, I was gonna say, I have no idea what's going
Why
on.
don't you go up the
Mental
view of her-
Yeah. So anything
All right,
you're
and
afraid of physically,
recording too, thank you.
I'm a shiny paint job with rusty.
Thank
buttons.
you, everybody.
Go outside and stuff.
No, he sits down. He sits down.
There's no, I can't go anywhere because the dog.
Weekly, physically, weekly, and then